Hitachi Energy is proud to partner with the Foreign Desk on Monocle Radio. Powering Purpose is a new book resulting from the partnership between Hitachi Energy and Monocle. It tells the story of the people and the technology leading the energy transition and ushering in a sustainable and secure future. Hitachi Energy and Monocle work together to provide inspiration on powering people's lives and where to find the energy for change in the era of electrification. Secure your copy now at monocle.com or in store in Monocle outlets around the world. And if you want to understand the role you can play in harnessing connections to ensure a brighter, more sustainable and secure future, head to hitachienergy.com. Hitachi Energy and Monocle, inspiring the energy for change.
The good news is that the United States is not going to invade Venezuela. At least that is the good news as of this recording, US President Donald Trump having told 60 Minutes earlier this week that despite the assembly of a not inconsiderable American flotilla off Venezuela's coast, he, quote, doubts that hostilities are imminent.
I doubt it. I don't think so.
The bad news is that Trump has given his 51st state prize wheel another spin, and this time it has ticked past Canada, Greenland, Panama and Gaza and landed on Nigeria. President Trump has instructed the US military to prepare itself for action in Nigeria. He used the phrase guns a-blazing, claiming that Nigeria's government is failing to adequately protect Nigeria's Christians. Trump declared furthermore that any such action would be fast, vicious and, curiously, sweet. Trump's faithful spaniel and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth responded by posting, "Yes, sir." The US military's high command must be pretty excited about this prospect, as American interventions in foreign jungles in support of beleaguered populations to whom a US president and defense secretary felt sympathetic have hardly ever panned out badly before.
Christians are practically being hunted for sport. And while the world looks the other way, Nigeria was marked the worst country in the world for Christian persecution last year.
It is not difficult to figure out how this particular bee got into the presidential bonnet. The overly online factions of Trump's base have been exciting themselves for some while over the idea that a genocide is being perpetrated by Islamists against Christians in Nigeria, with some support from relatively mainstream figures. Earlier this year, Senator Ted Cruz introduced a bill in support of Christians in Nigeria intended to sanction Nigerian officials who have either ignored or encouraged their persecution, although this allegation seems difficult to square with the fact that the upper echelon of Nigeria's defense and security establishment, including its current Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army, Chief of Navy, Director General of the State Security Service and Inspector General of Police, is heavily Christian. Ted Cruz indulging in fatuous, sanctimonious grandstanding. Imagine. It also appears to be the case that Trump happened to catch a Fox News report on this subject while traveling to his Florida redoubt aboard Air Force One last Friday. Trump has now designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, a label the US applies to countries which fail, as the US sees it, to uphold religious freedom. Nigeria joins a club including but not limited to China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Cuba, Eritrea and North Korea. But just because Fox News reports it, and just because Donald Trump believes it, does that mean it isn't true? Well, one of the reasons that the narrative of a Christian genocide has been able to flourish in hyper-conservative American circles is that Nigeria, a vast and crucial nation, is woefully underreported, which makes it tough to hobble or tether partisan fabulizing. For example, last month at least 14 Christians, several children among them, were murdered in an attack on 2 villages in Plateau State in roughly the centre of Nigeria. Reports suggest that the perpetrators were Fulani tribesfolk, who are by and large Muslims. This was, obviously, a horrifying and inexcusable crime, but this does not necessarily make it a sectarian and/or religious one. The Fulani are nomadic pastoralist types who often complain that access to land and water is becoming more difficult, and that more established farmers, who in that part of Nigeria tend Christian, kill their cattle. The Christian farmers would doubtless retort that it's their land and their water, and that the interlopers should keep out of it. It is often the case that conflicts which appear sectarian and/or religious in nature are much else besides. Tribe, ethnicity and/or faith may become an excuse or an organising principle, but in such instances are rarely entirely the reason. Which is not to argue that there is no Islamist fanaticism at large in Nigeria, but the victims of it are Muslims at least as often as not. In the north of the country, Boko Haram and its splinter sect Islamic State West Africa province continue their marauding. Last month, around 5,000 people fled across Nigeria's border with Cameroon as Boko Haram bore down on the town of Kiriwa in Borno State. Many Muslims were among those refugees, including district head Abdul Rahman Abubakar. In fighting elsewhere in Borno and Yobe states in recent weeks, Nigeria claims that its army killed more than 50 Boko Haram militants following Boko Haram drone raids on army barracks. In September, Boko Haram killed at least 60 people in another village in Borno. Among interviews with survivors, names like Abdullah, Ali and Mohammed feature significantly. All of which is complicated and nuanced, adjectives with which President Trump and his followers are rarely comfortable. Trump has explicitly framed all of the above, which is barely even the half of it, as a straightforward campaign of anti-Christian pogroms. Terrorist thugs, as he put it, against, as he also put it, our cherished Christians. Lest anyone be in any doubt, the cherished was capitalized. Trump may understand little of Nigeria, but he absolutely understands the importance and influence of American evangelical Christians, and is doubtless grateful for their long-standing, if bewildering, forgiveness of his own manifold trespasses. It is unarguably the case that thousands of Christians have been murdered in Nigeria in recent years. This is terrible. It is also the case that thousands of non-Christians have been murdered in Nigeria in recent years. This is also terrible. There are probably things that the United States could offer to do to help, and that Nigeria, a broadly pro-American democracy, has said it would welcome. But those things would be complicated, expensive, time-consuming, and just way more hassle than revving up the faithful with delirious fantasies of a crusade. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.